Hey guys, welcome back. Today we'll be doing a CSS session. So this will be regarding CSS transitions and CSS animations. Okay, so we've been getting a lot of these questions regarding like how to use CSS transition, how to work with CSS animation, like how to make let's say for example a button. When you hover on that button, how to slowly change the color behind it, or how to add a shadow that doesn't like appear all of a sudden or disappear all of a sudden, instead of like getting it slowly a vibrant move inside that button, like creating an animation kind of look. So today let's try to deal with that. Let's try to look into how to work with CSS transition, and also how to work with animation, and what is like a brief difference between these two. Okay, so I have my VS Code on the right here and my browser on the left. So I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to create an index.html file, and then I'm going to create a style.css as well. Let me zoom in a bit. Like this should be enough, I guess. Yeah. So as we know, if you're on VS Code, if you enter exclamatory mark once and if you hit enter, you'll get all this boilerplate code automatically for you. So I'm going to do that, and then here I'm going to say CSS, oops, transition and animation, right? And then we'll say hello world. And as we know, like whenever we do HTML, regarding HTML or JavaScript or plain HTML CSS videos, we use one thing, right? That is live server. So if you don't have it, may just click on this extension button, like the box icon here, and then search for live, live and server. Okay, and make sure to install this one. Okay, so this is from WebDevWednesday. Make sure to install this live server. Okay, so that you don't have to open up your HTML file and go back again, refresh every single time when you make changes. This will automatically reload every time it detects a change. Okay, so now so here you can see at the bottom I have this button, right? You can see go live. So I'm going to click on that go live, and it's going to automatically get my HTML file up and running. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a bit. Okay, so as we can see, the text size and everything is really small. If I zoom out, okay, just for the tutorial sake, I'm going to zoom in so that you guys can have a clear vision like what's going on and everything. Okay, cool. So now let's remove this hello world from here, and then first let's try to work on transition. Okay, so here I'm going to use a button because transition is extensively used in button styling a lot of times. So we'll use button. Okay, we'll see how to style a button properly. Okay, so here I'm going to say click me. Okay, so now we can see we have this button here, and this button is kind of small actually. So if I zoom out, you can see it's very small. Since I'm zooming in, it's kind of big. Okay, so now let's go to CSS. Wait, first we have to import our CSS file, right? So let's do that. So here we can have a comment, and we can say custom styles, and this is actually optional. This is a comment because we're writing CSS, right? We're writing custom styles. So I'm just defining like custom styles. It's actually good practice to have, like if you have any libraries that you're using, like let's say you are using Bootstrap, and we're importing Bootstrap here as well, which is actually CSS. So and then you're writing some CSS on your own as well, which is actually custom CSS. So you can actually like follow this type of organization standard, and then differentiate between the library specific CSS code and then your custom CSS as well. Okay, so now here I'm going to type length, close that, we'll say rel, and we'll say style sheet, and then href, it should be style.css. Okay, so it's been imported, so we'll go to style.css here. Okay, and then we'll directly refer, but since we're just dealing with one element, I'm going to directly refer HTML element here. Okay, so we'll go to button, right? And now let's change the color of the button first. So I have this website here that just gives me a list of many colors. It's called colors, COOLOR. Okay, so I'm going to click on this color right here, and then I'm going to say background color, hashtag color name. Come back, you can see the color is changed, We'll change the border as well. So I'm going to say border 1 pixel solid, and I'll use the same color. Now the border has changed. Now we'll go with border radius. So we'll provide around 4 pixels, and then we'll go with color of the text, which would be white. Yes, white. And then we need some size as well, right? You can see now the button is actually kind of small because the text is actually big, the font is kind of big, right? So what we'll do is we're going to say padding 0.5 rem and then 1 rem. So 0.5 would be the top and bottom, okay? 1 rem would be the left and right. So now we can see the button is kind of good, but I mean there's no effect here, right? You can see the cursor when I hover on my when I get my mouse cursor on top of the button, you can see still arrow. Like you should get a hand, like a palm icon, right, where you can specify the click. So let's do that. So here we'll say cursor pointer. So now if I drag my mouse pointer on top of that button, you can see it immediately turns into the palm, like let's say it's a click, right? But you can see that, but there's no effect, right? Even though I'm clicking my button, you can see the button doesn't react. Like I'm not sure whether I'm clicking the button right now because it doesn't react, it doesn't change its color, or it doesn't change its border. It's not doing anything. Like there's no way of telling that whether or not the button is working or not. So now what we'll do is we'll add hover effect. This is also called as micro interactions. Okay, just wanted to share that with you guys. So we add an hover effect. So we're gonna say background color. We'll use the same color but a slightly darker version. Okay, I have the color here on my notepad. Let me copy paste that. So we here will say like this. So now if I hover on that, you can see the color changes. See, now I'm sure that the button is working because the color is changing and it's showing me that yes, the button is working and it's actually capturing my cursor. Okay, and now what we can do is, but we can see one thing. Notice one thing here. If I hover on that, immediately the color changes. If I get my mouse away from it, the color immediately changes back, right? But there's no smooth way of color changing here, right? It just happens in a blink and then comes back in a blink, like all of a sudden. So let's avoid that. Let's create a smooth way of changing these colors. For that, we'll be using transition. Okay, and then since we're changing the background color here, I'm going to say background color, and then transition background color, and then we'll say transition duration. Okay, transition duration would be let's say around 0.5 seconds. Okay, 0.5 seconds, and then transition timing function would be linear. Okay, now if I hover on that, you can see it slowly changes. Look at how good it is right now, right? So let me comment these lines out. We'll see the difference. If I comment out these lines, see the color immediately changes and comes back again. But if I uncomment these, if I refresh the page and go back here, you can see it slowly changes and slowly comes back. See? So this is like a power of transition. So what transition is actually doing is it is changing the color, like it is applying your CSS code, like whatever the background color you have here, it is applying the same thing, but it is applying like it's going in a duration way. Like you have this duration specified here, right? 0.5 seconds. So it's slowly applying, it slowly changes everything. That's all it does. Okay, it slows down it for the duration you've given here. And you can also do one more thing. You can also provide a transition delay. Let's say I provide 2 seconds. Okay, so now if I refresh, if you go and hover here for 2 seconds, it won't do anything and then it changes the color. So it's basically delaying for 2 seconds and then it changes the color. Okay, that's what transition delay is. But we don't actually use delay like most of the time, but it's just good to know that you have something like this for some use cases we want. But what transition does is, so it will actually slow down whatever the CSS property you're trying to provide. Okay, so here in the transition we have background color, Okay, so when the background color is being changed in this button element, it takes 0.5 seconds to complete. That's what's happening here. Okay, so we're changing the background color to this button component. So since we have transition, it takes the duration, that is 0.5 seconds to complete the background color change. Okay, that's the reason you can see if I hover on that, we get this slow and smooth way of changing the color. Okay, that's what CSS transition is. Okay, now let's just complicate this thing. Let's add some more properties. Okay, so I'm gonna add transform translate by minus 0.25 m. So this will actually elevate the button. So when you hover on that, it will just go on top, like a little bit on top. Okay, and then we'll add box shadow as well. We'll add shadow. So we'll say 0.5 m, 0.5 m, minus 0.4 m, and then this primary color. Okay, now if I hover on that, you can see we have this shadow on the background of same color, and then the button is kind of going on top. But notice one thing, the background color changes like gracefully, changes slowly and steadily in smooth way, but the other properties, the transform and box shadow, it applies immediately, right? You can see here, right? It's kind of applying immediately. Like, how to avoid this? How can we avoid this? To avoid this, what we can do is, since we have multiple elements that we're trying to change, we can do all. Okay, when you do all, you can see the button animates gracefully and slowly. Okay, see, right? Now let's add one more pseudocode here, that is active. We'll say button active, and then we'll just remove the box shadow. Okay, we're going to remove the box shadow. Now you can get an amazing clicking effect. So if I hover on that, you can see I can click and come back. See? So the whole interaction of the button is kind of animated, and it is like slowed down right now. So it takes 5.5 seconds for every CSS property to be applied, which will create an animation and smooth look, a smooth impression, like, or experience for the user while using this button. Okay, so this is about CSS transition. It's very simple. All you have to remember is this one, timing function. Right now we're using linear, but how to change this, how to determine which one to use? For that, what you can do is go to DevTools, just right click on that button, click on inspect. Okay, and then here, let me zoom in a bit. Here you can see we have linear, right? And then you can see we have an icon here, right? We have an icon here, the purple icon. Click on that, and then Chrome gives you this amazing tool which you can use to play around with what type of animation, like what type of transition style you need. Okay, let's say I select this one. You can see this is how the animation work. If I select this one, this is how the animation work. This is ease out, this is a passed out linear in. So these are the standard predefined this one timing functions. But if you want to customize it, let's say I want to play around and customize how my animation should look like. Let's say I do this, oh, this is too fast. Okay, this is too fast. Okay, now let's try this. Now I want this particular timing function to be applied. How can I deal with that? So you can see we have this formula here, right? So Chrome gives us this formula that we can copy this, and then instead of linear here, paste that. That's all you have to do. Okay, come back, refresh, let me zoom in, and you can see now like, you know, the interaction changed, right? The behavior changed. You can see it kind of like struggles, like, you know, kind of like struggling to go up, right? It's not struggling though. That's how that's we created in that tool. But this is how you can customize the way you want your timing function to be. You can play around with the tool. You can see how the animation goes with that little ball over there on the top, and then you can copy paste that cubic Bezier formula here. Okay, that will take care of the custom transition animation. Okay, cool. So now this is all about CSS transition. Okay, Now let's look at CSS animation. So for that, I'm going to comment out this button. We'll just create a ball. Okay, so I'm going to say first, I'm going to create a div and provide it a class name of container. Okay, right, and then another div with a class name of ball. Okay. And let me close this. Okay, come down. Now I'm gonna first select container, and then I'm gonna say width 500 pixels, height 500 pixels, position relative. Okay, so now wait, why is this thing not appearing here? Is the spelling wrong? Okay, now let's try to style the ball. I think when we style the ball, it might appear. So we'll say ball, and then we'll go with width 1 rem, height 1 rem, then we'll say border radius 50% because we need it to be completely rounded, and then we'll say background color. We'll use the same color as before, the slightly red one. You can see we got it here. And then we can also add display inline block, so that it's not a block, because div is a block element, right? The div is a block element. It takes the whole width that's available for it. So when we do inline block, it doesn't take the whole width. It just takes around 1 rem. Okay. Although we specified it, it's actually safe to specify inline block as well, which is actually pretty good practice. Okay, and then I think that's enough right now. Okay, so we'll add a border here. We'll add a border for this one. We'll say 2 pixels, solid, and we'll give the same color. Now we can see we got the, oh, this is kind of big, right? This is very big. Let's try to reduce this to 300 pixels. Right, this is kind of good. Okay, now we have a container, a box, and a ball inside it. Now let's try to bounce this ball. Okay, let's try to bounce this ball infinitely. It keeps on bouncing. Okay, with CSS. Like we'll bounce from left to left end, top left end to the bottom right end. Okay, like this. Wait, what happened? Oops. Okay, let's try to do that. So CSS animation occurs in like in this way. So if you're someone who has worked with this video editing softwares, you might be familiar with the term called keyframes, right? Keyframes are like what do you say, a pauses. Okay, let's say here, let me show you like in visualize. Let me visualize it for you guys. Keyframes are something like this. So you'll have a dot. Okay, you'll have like something like this. So when something occurs, right, let's say something is happening, this is a line, that something, this is an event. Okay, this is an event, when this event happens, okay, and there is keyframe at particular stages here, right? There's a keyframe at particular stages, and this keyframe defines the behavior of that event in that particular time. Okay, let's say this is at 10%, this is at 20%, so on and so forth. So when an event occurs, when an event occurs, before it completely reaches to 100%, it has to change its behavior whenever it reaches these particular intervals. Keyframes are like intervals. It will be in some places, but when an event occurs, that event has to go through all these keyframes, and these keyframes will define its behavior. Okay, let's say we have, for example, we have this bouncing ball right here, and then that has to bounce from here to here. So we can define keyframes here, 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 here. Let's see if I can actually visualize it properly. Yeah, no, this is really bad. Let's go with that one. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay, so we can define a keyframe here, 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 and here. So now what this keyframe will do is, this keyframe will keep on changing the CSS values. Okay, let's say right now this is top 0, and left 0. in CSS properties we have this top and left and bottom right. So right now this ball is at top 0 and then left 0. Okay, now it comes to keyframe 10%. Okay, before reaching 100% it comes to 10%. Now we have to increment the top to 10 pixel, or let's say 50 pixel. Okay, and then again for left we'll say 50 pixel. So can you see the behavior change, right? Now the ball, instead of going like this, since the value changed to 50 and 50, it appears here. Again same thing, we'll change it to 100 when it appears to 20%, so the ball goes here. Similarly, we keep on changing the CSS values for every interval. Okay, that's for keyframes, the every interval, which is nothing but keyframes, and the ball, instead of going down or here, it goes slightly down here where we need it. Okay, that's what keyframes are. Keyframes are like intervals which alters the behavior of an event. Here the event is bouncing ball, and with keyframes we're actually altering the behavior of that ball. Okay, now let's try to do that. Here, to define a keyframe, we use this keyword in CSS. We use at, and then we say keyframes. Okay, you have to define, we have to give a name. So I'm going to say bouncing ball. This name can be anything. Okay, but make sure it is unique. Okay, if you have like multiple keyframes, do not give same keyframe name for other keyframes. Okay, keep the name unique. I'm going to say bouncing ball, and then here I'm going to define the values. So I'm going to say 0%. Okay, 0%. I need the top to be 0 pixels or just 0, and then left to be 0. Okay, as we discussed earlier. Okay, now at 0%, the top will be 0 and left will be 0. And now we'll define, let's define two keyframes right now. Okay, at 100%, what's happening with this? Right. Okay. But 100%, let's say I need this to be 250 pixels. Oh, wait. Top to be 250 pixels, and then left to be around 250 pixels. Let's keep it same. Okay, now let's try to implement this strategy to this bouncing ball. Okay, now to add this keyframe to this event, the bouncing ball event, we'll say animation bouncing ball. Okay, and then we can also provide animation delay and everything here. So we'll say animation duration here. The duration would be around 5 seconds. Okay, and then we also need one more thing, that is animation timing function. Again, timing function, what we can linear, or you need some other ease in, ease out and everything. But since we are doing the bouncing here, we don't need this because the linear and everything defines their own way of speed and everything, but we don't need that right now. But we'll go with animation what is iteration count. Okay, iteration count, like how many times we want this animation to occur. So here I'm going to say once for now. We'll change the values later. Once. Okay, now we'll refresh the page and see how that works. Okay, is there any mistake on the lines? Oh yeah, I forgot to add position absolute. All right, now we can see the bounce ball goes down there, comes back again immediately, right? Because we have 0 to 100%, it completes and comes back to it comes back again to the origin. If I zoom in again, if I refresh, you can see it comes back again, right? So now what we can do is we can also alter this position. Let's say you want the ball to go at the bottom and stay there. To do that, what you can do is you'll say animation fill mode forwards. When you say forwards, it actually stays there. You can see if I refresh, it goes there and stays. It doesn't come back, it stays there. But when you change it to backwards, which is by default, it goes there, comes back again. See, it comes back, right? You can also change any CSS properties. You can alter any behavior of the ball here, right? Now let's say while starting, I want this to be at, I'll say 0, but write 0 here. Let's see how this works out. You can see it's kind of changing everything, right? See, it started from here, but immediately when the keyframe started, it immediately went to right. Even though it is situated on the left, since we have right here the keyframe, the event, like the keyframe at 0%, alter the behavior of the ball. You can see it's starting from the left side, but the animation actually starts from right because we have right 0. Because the keyframe at 0% alter the behavior. Okay, and let's change it to left because it's actually strange. It goes to right and then left again. So we'll change the background color. So we'll change the background color to blue, and then we'll also add a keyframe around 25%. Okay, so here we'll change the background color to red. We already have red, right? We'll say purple, and we keyframe at 80% to go to background color. Let's see, what color do we have? Chocolate. Okay, and at last 100% we can say background color to black. Okay, now we can see the colors are changing. At last it turns black. See, the keyframes alters the behavior as well. Okay, it not only applies your animation, you can do anything with this keyframe. If you want, if you have just two properties, right? If you have just two, you can also define something like this. Let me remove all these three new properties. And since now we have only two properties, you don't have to do it 0% to 100%. You can say from to 2. You can also do it this way, from to 2. And now we can see it only happens from to 2. That's all. From point to 2 point, just 2 points. Okay, but if you have multiple events or multiple intervals, then you can use percentage. Okay, so this is all about animation. It's very simple. CSS animation is straightforward and simple, but only thing that's actually confusing and challenging is the part where we apply it. Okay, so when it comes to applying the CSS animation and transition, it takes a bit of practice. So I recommend you guys to like implement CSS transition and practice for every element that you use in work or when you're building projects. Let's say you're building a card, a list of cards. Okay, so add a transition. So when people hover on that card, add the box shadow, so that will pop up, or add the transition or transform translate, so that it will elevate, or change the border color, or change the font color. Use transition for that, because transition will create a slow and smooth way of changing this, so which will be pleasant experience for the user as well. And you can use animations for landing pages a lot. So let's say, or spinner as well. You have this loading spinner, right? So you can use animation for that. You can define a spinner, and then you can also define infinite here. Infinite. So when you define iteration count infinite, you can see it will keep on bouncing. It won't stop. See, something like this. So you can use iteration count as infinite, so that your spinner keeps on spinning. Okay, so you can do many things with animation and transition. So it takes a bit of practice to know where to apply them, where not to apply them, but eventually you'll get an hold of it. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, guys. So if you have any doubt, we have our Discord server. So the link is in the description. You can join our Discord server and then ask us any doubts you guys have. So it might be anything regarding your projects, or regarding your this tutorial, or any future tutorial as well. So you can come here. Okay, and then we have this channel called, let me expand this. Okay, we have this upskill channel, so you can drop your questions anywhere here. Okay, so we'll definitely we'll be online every day here, office hours, or even night as well, sometimes midnight. So we'll definitely reply to you as soon as possible. And we also have this today I learned channel here, where we keep on posting a summary of any new thing that we learn. So this is an amazing channel, because we keep on learning many things every day from many people as well. Many people come and post here all the summary of their whatever they learn in that particular day. It will be an amazing thing that we can learn so many things out of our domain as well, and we can at least a summary of it. So I really encourage you guys to come and join our community as well. So that's it. Yeah, thank you guys, thank you so much. We'll meet again. Okay, bye bye.